a conservative working peer, the international secretary of my party, and a newspaper columnist. It's lovely to co-host this meeting with my friend and colleague Naz Shah, the Member of Parliament for Bradford. And it's lovely to see so many of my parliamentary colleagues from both houses and from all parties, and indeed, in some case, at least in the case of Ayub Khan, from no party. It's nice to see independents as well as Conservative and Labour MPs and peers here. We are all here because we are friends of Pakistan and friends of Pakistani democracy. Pakistan is an old and valued ally and a friend in the Commonwealth ally bound to us by those shared values of personal freedom, the rule of law, and representative government. And of course, there is an additional bond in that there are more than 1 million Brits of Pakistani heritage, which means that we cannot be indifferent to what is happening in a friendly country like that. We all, I think, want to see the economic renaissance that will follow when there is political stability in Pakistan. And that will happen when the international community recognizes that there is a stable government based on broad popular support. It's lovely to see friends here from the British Pakistani community and as well as from the British Parliament. Coming here for us is not a high-risk occupation, at least I hope not. But there have been people in Pakistan who have been on the receiving end of some really quite scary treatment for having promoted this meeting, which our speakers will come on and tell you about later. I'm going to speak at the end about some of the things that I think we can be doing in this country. But I'd like to hand over now to Naz, who is going to introduce the speakers and who is going to set the scene for our meeting. So Naz, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kilo Tanan, for hosting it. And thank you all of you for coming this morning, taking your time out. This is really, really important. I'm not going to take the content away from what our speakers are going to be talking about, and I want to reiterate the point that we are friends of Pakistan. This is not an anti-Pakistan meeting. This is a pro-Pakistan meeting. The reason it's pro-Pakistan is a proud daughter of Kashmir, of Pakistani heritage. For me to be here signifies that I am very, very aligned to the success of my mother's home country. I'm very aligned to the success of where my forefathers come from. And that success will only be achieved if we are critical in our conversations and we are true friends and true to ourselves in our positions of leadership in this house. I have talked about the issue of journalists in the past being harassed, certainly in the different regimes, and I will work with the government of the day. But I am also a human rights activist. And where I come from in Yorkshire, there's a really good saying, you can't be a bit pregnant, you're either pregnant or you're not. You can either be on the right side of human rights or you don't. You can't pick and choose which ones, regardless of the cost and regardless of the pushback you get from people. So that is my first opening statement. This is a pro-Pakistan meeting, because if we want Pakistan to succeed, and you have the UN and other commentators making these very, very serious reports and accusations, and and when you hear the contents, which I'll leave to the speakers, we need to do something. It cannot be that we ignore this and kick it into the long grass, because I'm proud here, the mother of all parliaments. And I went across to Pakistan and we led a delegation at a time when PTI was first elected. And indeed, Baroness Varsi and I actually addressed the cabinet, which was the first ever time that two parliamentarians from another country addressed the new cabinet. So we do have an obligation and we do have a responsibility. I'm also very clear about calling out, even last night, we met with the foreign minister talking about the issues which are happening in Bangladesh right now, which is not not very far away. I've also talked about the issue of what happens in India's, Modi's India, in terms of the persecution of, press freedoms or minority communities. So it's only right that I also apply the same measuring yardstick like I do across the globe, and Pakistan is closer in terms of my vested interests. I also have one of the largest diaspora communities of Pakistanis in the UK, largely from Azad Kashmir and Pakistan. And I know we have people who have emailed me who are raising concerns, not just for the UN report, but for our own parliamentary report that was published during the general election. And again, people are raising concerns. And since this meeting was put, the word about this meeting got out, again, I got lots of supportive emails, but I also had interesting conversations of why I'm taking part. And I think the reason I am taking part is not just because of what I've said, but I have my children are in Pakistan right now. It's a country what I want my children to understand. I want and their children potentially to understand. It's part of our heritage, and we have a very long-standing relationship, and it is an important relationship, that I really, really value. But I want to see Pakistan thrive. I want to see the women's rights in particular, something very close to my heart, having spent my teenage years in Pakistan. That democracy only comes with a freedom of press like we enjoy in this country, and we have to model ourselves and at least pursue that perfection for every country who we are allies with. As part of a Commonwealth, this country is an important country to us. So we do need to raise our voices when journalists are abducted, when journalists have restrictions placed upon them, and I have done previously, and I will continue to do so. I will now stop and introduce you to my first speaker, and I'll read each of the bios as we go on. But we do have with us Sarwar Bari, who is the founder of the Faktan Development, right? And we have Meher Banu and Sayyid Zulfi Bahari. Now, Bari is the founder and national coordinator of Pathan Development, a registered not-for-profit organisation that has conducted work in addressing and raising awareness of governance and democracy deficiencies in Pakistan through research and social mobilisation. Pathan Development is a member of numerous global and regional networks on disaster, governance and democracy. Bari served as a chairman of the Free and Fair Election Network, twice a collection of civil society networks in Pakistan dedicated to strengthening democracy through observation and oversight of electoral, parliamentary and governance processes. So over to Sarwar.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to share my feelings and the findings which we have come to through election observation audit of the Election Commission website. So thankful. But before I start this, I would like to share a personal. I was sentenced for 14 years during Zia's regime. So I managed to escape from Pakistan and lived here. And perhaps I was one of the few persons who went back when Zia died. The same kind of fear which we had in 1982, 1981 when I came to this country, has returned to Pakistan. The fear is there. And people are being kidnapped, harassed, followed. And I believe that if we don't have freedom, we don't have democracy. So freedom is very, very essential. Regarding our organization, which consists of more than 200 associations across the country, which is called Coalition 38. 38 is the article of Pakistan Constitution, which guarantees social justice in the country. So after that, we have formed a Coalition 38, and this is one of the largest network. We not only observe the polling, but we also observe the whole process of election. And now we are busy auditing the Election Commission data, because that is something which, as often said, that there is no perfect crime, there is no perfect rigging. And you can find a lot of clues by auditing and examining the Election Commission website. I would just, for the last 2 weeks, we have been working on NA 130, which is a constituency of a three-time elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, and the provincial constituencies, two provincial constituencies fall under NA 130. So this is the latest audit, and before that we have audited all the Farm 47s. Farm 47 is about the election results uh, of the whole constituency. Out of 265 constituencies where elections were held, we found serious problems in 208 Farm 47s. Calculation errors, and on 74% Form 47s, ROs, returning officers, did not bother to write their proper names, the place where election results were prepared. We issued that statement long time ago, soon after the election. And on 3rd of July, we found out that Election Commission on its website, under the heading of Farm 45, in fact, has loaded Farm 46. So the Farm 46 is a ballot count. How many ballot papers are given to each polling station and how many have been used. So instead of putting Farm 45 on under the heading of Farm 45, they put Farm 46. When it came, like all the media in Pakistan took up this issue, and Dawn especially wrote a big story on that and wrote a editorial on this issue as well. Election Commission next day changed the Google Drive file, and I don't know from where they brought Farm 45s and put it on the app. But the Google Drive was showing that the results were changed at this time. And then again, we issued another statement. And since then, we have been demanding that all the election material must be frozen in Pakistan. Otherwise, the tampering will continue. The latest thing is that we accept Islamabad, capital territory. In every other constituency or polling station, every voter gets two ballot papers, one for the National Assembly and the other for provincial assembly. And very often, a voter will use both forms. The white ballot was for the provincial assembly and the green was for the National Assembly. We found out a scandalous data. I wish I could have some multimedia so that I can show you. But anyway, there is huge difference between the turnout for provincial assembly candidate, provincial assembly vote and the National Assembly vote. This is Nawaz Sharif's constituency. In 3 polling stations, the turnout is more than 100%. While in the same polling stations for the provincial assembly, turnout is less than 30%. This kind of happens. This is just scandalous. Then in 110 constituencies, the difference between provincial assembly poll vote and the National Assembly poll vote is between 40 and 50%. Now, if we compare the registered voters for these polling stations, in fact, the turnout was less than 50%. But for the National Assembly NA 130, the turnout was between 70 and 90%. Now, Election Commission, the reason now the establishment and the Election Commission and the ruling coalition has been trying its best to delay the examination by the election petitions, election tribunals. So all the effort at the moment is being geared to to manipulate judiciary, to coerce media and civil society, so that the criminals are not capable of asking the election commission to bring all the material, because that material doesn't exist. It's not there. So this is latest finding of our audit, but I believe that the most important now is, because we feel that organizations like us are being intimidated, so that we stop saying anything. Most of the time, the English newspapers don't print, and if they print, they take long time to produce our press releases. Though the data is uh, uh, cannot be challenged, because it's on the election commission website. So this is what I wanted to share with you, because the other speakers are going to have their time as well. But if you have any questions, I can answer later.
Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you very much for that. Before I bring you on to introducing Meher Banu Qureshi, I just want to say it's an honour to have a fellow female politician here, amongst many of us here. Now, much has been said about the recent elections in the UK, about the intimidation of women in particular, and the kind of fights that we've had to fight. Certainly, that applied to my constituency. But the stories that we've heard from Pakistan about the way women were treated. I mean, it's often an issue around election times, but the way people were treated during this election, particularly women, particularly with PTI activists, supporters, it was absolutely appalling. Meher is the daughter of the former Foreign Secretary Shah Mahmood Qureshi, fought the election in 2024 from Multan, and it was accepted that you'd won by 5,000 votes, which was then 5,500, and then that was overturned. Now, if we applied those policies, you guys would still be in government, wouldn't you? But yeah, over to Meher Banu Qureshi to tell us what happened.
Thank you, Naz. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. I am going to try and not bore you with too many numbers. I'm actually here to give a very personal account of what I witnessed as a candidate. So it's a first-hand account of what I think was an unprecedented election in Pakistan. Not just that it was being conducted with the most fascist tactics being used against a political party in Pakistan, but also the environment. Our party was banned. It was not allowed on television. Nobody could take Imran Khan's name. His face could not be shown. This is in the run-up to the election. So every day there's new stuff coming. Our entire leadership, majority, was in jail and still remains languishing in jails. The ones that weren't arrested were in hiding. So we actually didn't have a spokesperson to speak for us at the time. Not that the media would even take us on. And that is the general context and the general environment in which we had to contest this election. In the run-up to the elections, I'm just going to be, I thought I would go through, but I'm going to keep it a little quick, and I'm going to keep it a little casual here. What basically happened was 4 weeks prior, on the 13th of January, elections were to be held on the 8th of February. On the 13th of January, the Supreme Court of Pakistan decides to strip the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf of its symbol. Now, a symbol is very important in a country like Pakistan, where the electorate the voter is not educated. There are many voters who are illiterate. The most of the population, majority, is in the rural area, so they need a symbol to identify a party. They sometimes don't read the name of the candidate. And because this time a lot of our candidates are going to be new people, new faces, they needed a symbol because our known faces and known members were in jail and they weren't allowed to contest and they weren't going to be in the race. So the symbol became even more important. And what's really interesting is that the symbol was taken away from us at midnight on the 13th. And that was the last day. It was Saturday night. It was the last day for us to submit our nomination papers as well. And so what happens is the symbol is taken away and suddenly we're all forced to become independent candidates, even though all put in our affiliation as that. We are all assigned assorted symbols. So how it works is that I contested for the National Assembly, which is the federal parliament. And then you have the provincial members as well who contest for the provincial assemblies. So it's one MNA and two MPAs under that. So it's like a panel. My MPAs didn't have the same symbol as me either. So we had three different symbols in one constituency for one party. Not only did I have to go and tell people that my symbol is now what you'd call a tong, but my MPA in this constituency, 219, it has a bowl, and the other guy in 220 has a pillow. These are ludicrous symbols, by the way. Imagine contesting and saying, please vote for the pillow. you know, or like my brother was given a pair of shoes, which is considered insulting in Pakistan, right? And anybody familiar with our culture would know that you don't give somebody a shoe. And he was the only one, I think, in all of Pakistan that was given that symbol. So it was a message. A message received because the people of Pakistan and the people of that constituency took that shoe and beat the government with it, and gave us an astounding mandate. If you look at the numbers, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf won 54% of the total number of seats across Pakistan. Now I'm talking about National Assembly and provincial assemblies, which comes to 469 seats out of 859 seats that were contested on the 8th of February. Unfortunately, that number was reduced to 33% at only 284 seats. Now, we have never seen vote theft at such a large scale. I mean, we're looking at 185 seats across Pakistan that on Form 45s, which let me explain to you, a Form 45 and why it's so important is that is the result that you're given at the polling station. So the counting is done in front of all the polling agents from all parties. The final result is put on Form 45. Those forms are then taken to the RO's office, and they're consolidated. And the consolidated form is called Form 47, which gives you the final result. So Form 45 actually is the most accurate representation of the count. 47 is just a tabulation, which is why 45 is so important. So what happened was that 185 seats, the results were overturned. The results were changed. The people's mandate was stolen. Millions of Pakistanis were silenced with a stroke of a pen. And in my opinion, that is the greatest disservice to democracy that we have seen in Pakistan. Pakistan has not been a perfect democracy, ever. I think I have always seen it this way as a student of politics as well, that Pakistan was a country that was transitioning to democracy. And that journey to democracy since the 70s, has been patchy, but we've always made great strides. We've always been committed to being a democracy and to establishing and to fighting for democracy and to fighting for greater transparency. The current Election Act, which are the rules by which our elections are governed, was made in 2017, keeping in mind all these issues, bringing in more legislation and more rules to create greater transparency. But what we saw in 2024, none of us could have imagined in our wildest dreams that the government, the caretaker government, the Election Commission of Pakistan would go to such lengths. And this, mind you, may I tell you, is after, before the election, you have pushed the party against the wall. You have rejected their candidates' nomination papers. We had to go to the courts to be allowed to contest. After that, when our reps went to file our papers, because we couldn't go to file our papers, we would have gotten arrested or picked up or disappeared. They were picked up and disappeared. Our papers were taken away. So we had to go and make these nomination files folders all over again. I remember my brother and I sat from because our secretary who took our papers to file for us was picked up as he was leaving the office, and all the papers were taken away. So we sat all night from 12 till 12 in the afternoon the next day, just trying to put it all together because we had a deadline and we had to submit our papers. Then when you go for scrutiny, our proposers and seconders were picked up from right outside the election offices. And that's just not my story. That story is replicated across Pakistan. There are many, what I'm telling you, my personal account, the iterations of this account can be found all throughout the Grand Trunk Road, going all the way up in the north to Peshawar and all the way down south to Karachi. Everybody has a similar story. This didn't just happen to me. This happened across the board to the people of Pakistan and to the representatives of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf alone. No other party had to face these hardships. No other party was suppressed, oppressed, hunted, and chased like our people were. And this is when our entire top tier leadership was already in jail. The ones that weren't were either in exile or were in hiding. And with this backdrop, we went to the polls. And a lot of times, my family asked me, my husband is seated here, my kids would ask me or would worry, and they would say, "Why are you doing this? I live a wonderful life. I don't need to be doing any of this." Um, and I think about what compelled me. Well, what compelled me was that there was a very stifling atmosphere where we had no freedoms. And as a daughter who saw her father being jailed and tried in a case in which he was innocent, and the prosecution pushing for capital punishment, uh, I had to speak up. And as a mother of three daughters, I felt that I had to fight. I had to fight for their future and the future of millions of Pakistanis. Because today, and this is why this election is so important, and this is why we are here, and this meeting is so important. It's because today, if we don't raise a voice for democracy in Pakistan, I think the democratic project or the journey to democracy in Pakistan will stand completely unraveled, broken, and dismantled. And it is very, very important that we speak for democracy and that we ensure that we can do that. We have a former Prime Minister, Imran Khan. We have a former Foreign Minister, my father, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, and multiple leaders of our party that are in jail for it's been over a year. They're facing trumped up charges. We've already been through the Cypher case. So they were tried under the Official Secrets Act and given 10 years in prison. Whereas the prosecution, and I heard this daily, imagine as a daughter sitting in a room and hearing the prosecution push for the death penalty. And then having to go run to your constituency and campaign under the harshest circumstances where our posters weren't allowed. I didn't have the space to campaign. My workers got called and threatened by the police daily. There were places before I got there, we couldn't hold large conventions because the police would come and rip everything up. We had to go within four walls. And even then, there are many times, there are many occasions where I got calls before I could reach a certain event saying, please don't come, the police is here and they're threatening us. And they pull down the posters. And I would have to say to them, don't worry, I'm still going to show up, and they will do nothing. Because at the end of the day, they're just bullies. And you don't get bullied. You stand your ground and you face the bully. And we did. And millions of Pakistanis did. They did not get disheartened by the fact that their chosen party did not have its symbol. They went, they looked it up, they memorized our symbols in hundreds of symbols across Pakistan. They memorized them, they went out, they told the people. I couldn't campaign. I had 12 days to campaign. But there were people in my constituency who campaigned for me because they see Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in parliament. They gave us a two-third mandate to run this country. But that mandate has been stolen and reduced to 93 seats. And a political party that only managed to win 17 seats today runs the government. And even if we accept the fraudulent Form 47 results, we still have a minority government that is dithering, doddering, and has no idea on what to do and how to take Pakistan out of this mess. Which is why, again, it is so important that we have an audit of this election, that we allow the tribunals to run independently and freely. On the 8th of February, after facing many hurdles, many challenges, threats, abductions, our workers were picked up, my workers were arrested daily. We had to keep sort of supporting them and giving them, encouraging them to stand their ground. We go to the polls on the 8th. people come out in large numbers, despite the fact that telephone and mobile services were switched off on the 8th, to discourage people from coming out, to discourage people from maybe checking up on where exactly their polling stations were, to discourage people from, to create an atmosphere of fear so that people wouldn't leave their homes, they wouldn't come out to vote. But people came out and people voted. And they gave a verdict, and it was a very loud verdict, and it was in favor of PTI. But on midnight, 8th February, so now we are on 9th of February, the results somehow stopped coming in. At 11:30 on the 8th of February, with 55% of my polling station vote counted, I was leading by 16,000 votes. I tried to go at that point to the camp office, where as a candidate, not only am I entitled, I'm mandated by the Election Act to be present while the vote is being consolidated. I'm not allowed to enter. I was asked who I was. I introduced myself. I was asked to say my party affiliation. The moment I said Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the man at the gate said, we're not allowed to give you entry. We can't let you pass. I waited an hour and a half. I went back. I returned at 3 a.m. disguised as a polling officer. I went in a small car, I covered my head, I put on glasses. It's been an adventure. And I made it inside at 3 a.m. only to find that the place was swarming with police. They had no business there, but they were there. My opposing candidates were all allowed to be present while the vote was being counted. I was the only one that was kept out. My polling agent, my representatives were thrown out. The UN observer that was assigned to my constituency, because I'd met with him and I spoke with him that night, at 8 p.m., he told me even he had been thrown out of the room. So we didn't have observers, we didn't have press, we didn't have candidates, and we didn't have their representatives in the room where these numbers were fudged. And at 3 a.m., when I showed up at the door and I asked them why the result had still not been announced, I was told that it would be shortly. And I started talking to them, and in not so many words, I was told by the assistant RO that you've worked really hard, you've polled really well, you've got a lot of votes, but this time this seat is going to go to the People's Party. Have you ever heard of that in a democracy? Were we handing out candy? Was it Halloween? Did I come trick-or-treating? It was an election that I had won, and it's not about my seat. It's about the people of Pakistan and their vote, which is their voice and their opinion. So when you change those results, you stifle a people. You stifle democracy. You take away the people's right to speak, to have an opinion, and you take away their opinion and you reject it. So we as a state have rejected our own people and have rejected their opinion and have pushed them against the wall, where today Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they're banned. They're not working in Pakistan. So the people of Pakistan are being told, not only do you not have a vote, your vote doesn't matter, your voice doesn't count, and you're not allowed to have an opinion. And that is not what you call freedom. Freedom is the right to be able to say things that might be really unpopular as well, but people have to hear them. And that is what we are asking for. We're asking for you to speak for freedom in Pakistan, to speak for democracy in Pakistan, and to strengthen the people of Pakistan. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, and particularly after the note we just had about switching off all the social media, but I've had a message from Black Rod asking people to stop recording because it's technically not allowed to take photographs in Parliament. So if I can just pass that on. I apologize. I'll hand back to Naz.
Thank you, Meher. I mean, I thought my election was bad, just the idea of people intimidating us with dogs and threats and things. And that has been covered extensively in the British press about how women in particular were intimidated during this election. But the idea of what you experienced is just, it just needs, it puts us in pale in comparison, and yet we have so much coverage. Our final speaker, Syed Zulfi Bukhari, was been part of Tehreek 2011, former special assistant to the Prime Minister at that time, Imran Khan, now the advisor on international relations and media Zulfi was also I remember when we were in Pakistan, the Minister for Overseas Pakistanis and responsible for tourism. I'm going to leave it there because you've got a lot to tell us. Yeah, over to Zulfi.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. First and foremost, Lord Hannan and Binasha, thank you so much for this hearing. All the Lords, Baronesses, and the newly elected MPs, thank you for attending this. I'll just start with, first and foremost, the point of this hearing, this meeting, is to create awareness and realization of what is happening in a democracy of 250 million people. I don't believe that the actual severity of what is going on in Pakistan is probably told the way that it should be and has been explained as much as it could be. I will just start with, I don't want to overlap in anything that my colleague Mehbano has said or that Bari Saab has said, so I'll try to keep it to the context of where Imran Khan, his senior leadership, his wife, and the party as a whole stands in the country today. Mehbano explained to you all the things that happened, the pre-poll, what we call pre-poll rigging before the election, but there's a lot more to it. We had about 13,000 people placed in prison prior to election in the crackdown, including Imran Khan and the top tier leadership. Currently, we're about at 3,000 people in prison, including Imran Khan, his wife, and top tier leadership. Recently, just for this event, just to give you a context, that this event was being so heavily regarded or looked at that we had a crackdown on our entire media team. Mine and the party's, I am the advisor to international media and relations. My coordinator in Pakistan, who's Imran Khan's coordinator to international relations, was abducted at 4:15 in the morning in his house 3 days ago. He was then brought in front of the court yesterday when his lawyer said that he has to be brought in front of the judge. The FIR written on him was only for 2 days ago, or 1 day ago, rather. He was missing for 2 days. So the police complaint is only of 24 hours ago, and the actual abduction was of 72 hours. So it didn't even match. And when there was no case on him, because he's just an educated boy that you hire to coordinate with international media, which we have a lot of today, and I thank them for coming. The FIR put on him was of illegal arms, explosives, and perhaps affiliation with banned outfits. I mean, and imagine what his mother, and he kept telling me that I'm going to get abducted in the next couple of weeks. I said, why don't you go under and we'll just communicate via phone? He said, I can't leave my elderly parents alone. And this was his stance too. The same thing happened with our information secretary yesterday. Our head office, our headquarters of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in Islamabad was raided by police with no actual warrants, nothing, no reason for it. Our our acting chairman was arrested and then released, and our information secretary is still arrested and was taken away. Again, the charges are that there's an international campaign of being anti-state. So this is all done because as soon as international media becomes more aware and louder in their voices, the crackdown comes on the people and the Pakistani Tehreek-e-Insaf, the people within the country. At the same time, I would like to mention another abduction, which there are plenty of in the last couple of weeks. The crackdown has only severed, and I'll come to the reason why. And we have our social media lead who is in exile, Azam Ashwani. His two brothers, who are not in politics, nothing to do with politics, have been abducted for over a month or so. He was supposed to attend today. He tweeted yesterday that I'm in London and I'm going to attend and talk about my two elder brothers that are abducted. He got a call from an unknown number, well, using his brother's mobile, who was abducted, saying that if you attend this, we will now kidnap you or abduct your parents as well. So we don't want you to attend. So he called me last night and he says, Zulfi, I need my brothers to come back. I said, look, if that is what's being put on you, your parents are elderly, don't do this, but at least argue back that you're not going to attend it, and then within 7 days release your two brothers. So he did not attend. At the same time, we've got our media lead, Rizwan, he's abducted. The list goes on and on and on. And these are abductions. The situation for us and our party in Pakistan has become as such that when you are arrested, you actually look up and thank God, because you go into a prison system where you have some form of normality and rules and regulations. But when you're abducted, it means that everyone's turning around to everyone and saying, we don't know who took it. So this is the situation where it actually became that when we have our core committees, we turn around and say, thank God he's in prison and not abducted. I want to take you back at why has this sped up and why is this heightened in the last few days, especially. This is because 1 week ago, we had back-to-back victories in the Supreme Court of Pakistan. We won our reserve seats, which means our seats for minorities, which means our seats for women. And that takes us up to a figure, give or take, about 121, which makes us the largest party in the parliament. Since there was immense pressure put on the judges for this decision to go against us, we won that Supreme Court decision 8-5. Back to back, Imran Khan won his illegal marriage case, where he was told that apparently his marriage is illegal. Again, lots of pressure was applied. The ex-husband of his wife, Bushra Bibi, was abducted, tortured for about 3 months, and then all of a sudden, 2 years later, came out with that, oh, I forgot to tell you that my wife married you illegally. For 2 years, he was absolutely fine, living a free life. And when he got abducted, he came back and did what you call in the Islamic law, the case on Imran Khan. And we ended up winning those, meaning that you have now a treasury case, which Imran Khan got bail on. You have a trust case, which is 200 students studying for free in a trust, no financial benefits, and they're actually serving in a university which is teaching all subjects for free on Imran Khan, which is he was acquitted on and thrown out. And at the same time, you had the Cypher case where Meher Banu's father was also there, and that was also given bail and thrown out. So now all the cases were acquitted from or given bail, as the judge ordered that Imran Khan and his wife should be released immediately in Pakistan. Police came and new cases were thrown upon him. Old cases, just with a slight twist, and they weren't given bail or released on that day. I want to just add to you that these cases, these victories led to this knee-jerk reaction of all of a sudden, Pakistan government announced that we will go through cabinet because the courts are not siding with them anymore. The rule of law is being upheld to a certain extent in certain courts. So they decided that we will go through cabinet and we are going to ban Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf altogether. Just 48 hours after a Supreme Court judge said that Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf was, is, and will remain a political party in Pakistan. So the banning of our symbol was illegal, which was done by the Election Commission of Pakistan. Banning of a lot of our candidates was illegal, and not allowing to fight under our symbol and under Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in this election was absolutely illegal. And it was done so that the popular mandate was not given to the public. With that, I will just bring you a little bit forward. I'm going to fast track a lot of things because I know Lord Hannon has to speak on way forward. I want to bring you to the matter of tribunals that Bari Saab touched on. The tribunals are now being manipulated. They're being given to ad hoc judges. They've been given to judges that are retired. So when the judges have no longer, the current existing judges have no longer decided to stand with this duress that's being put upon them. And mind you, they made a public letter of 6 judges saying that there are video cameras in our bedrooms. We are being blackmailed. We are being forced. There's duress put upon us. And decisions are made which we don't want to make, and we're not going to stand for this anymore. This is a public letter by 6 senior high court judges. When they refuse to be part of these or be manipulated in these tribunals, a new order was by the Chief Justice was passed that we will bring retired judges back into these tribunals and make them give the decisions that we want them to give us. So this has been taken, and all that's done is just a delaying tactic. These tribunals are not being made unless the judges of their liking come on to it. So this is giving you an idea of what Bari Saab is saying, that these calculations are never going to come to life because these judges are all going to be the tribunals will never take place unless their actual picked judge, hand-picked judge, retired or not retired, is going to be elected. I'm going to come on to one more thing. I want to talk about something extremely important, and I believe that in a country which, regardless of which way the election went, voted for change, the people came and voted, and their vote was accepted. And a democracy, that's exactly what happens, and that's what happened in England. In other parts of the world, you are seeing candidates step out of their election run simply because they have to serve their party and nation better. We are a democracy of 250 million people, yet the awareness of champions of democracy in the more developed societies of democracy, perhaps the awareness and the voices weren't doing justice. This isn't something that I'm saying. This is not something that Mirbaz said. This is not something that Imran Khan is saying. This is something that I want all of you to kindly go through the UN report on arbitrary detention with the working group of arbitrary detention and go through those pages on their websites and see that report. It's a unanimous opinion by the UN. I'm going to go through 3 salient points, and that's it. And those are this. Imran Khan, and these are recommendations on the last page written by the working group of the UN. First and foremost, immediate release of Imran Khan. Immediate release from this illegal imprisonment of Imran Khan. Compensation to be given to Imran Khan for this illegal release. And third of the foremost, that this was done only to keep him out of the electoral race of 2024. These are decisions given by the UN. And last and foremost, that whichever officers did this, an inquiry should be put on them that under what pressure and under what law did they illegally take this action. This is the UN working group. I would urge all of you to please look at this, talk about it. This is not a meeting like MP Nasha said about anything anti our country. How could someone like Imran Khan or his party be anti-Pakistan when our request or our urge to the rest of the world is only one: rule of law. We only want the rule of law to be applied. We don't want anything special towards us. We don't want any special treatment. We don't want any other involvement in our country. All we want is the rule of law and the upholdment of democracy, the right of self-determination of 250 million people. Right now, we are in political turmoil. Every single day that goes by, Imran Khan becomes more popular and there's instability in the country. You're economically or even security-wise, which affects the entire world, especially our region. Terrorism is on the rise, as we can see in recent reports. In our government, 2019 was the safest year in Pakistan for 15 years. Why didn't we have this instability of terrorism during our government? Why has there been a sudden surge when there's absolutely no political buy-in from the people towards this government that's been imposed onto us? So this is all that we have come here today, and with the kindness of both of them to hold this and you guys coming, I want to just lastly again talk about that when this arrest happened and our officers got raided. 30, not only were our staff shoved into one room, they've been arrested, and we still at the moment have our information secretary, Rauf Hassan Saab, and we have 13 women arrested as well for no rhyme or reason since yesterday in Pakistan. So this is the kind of pressure that we have not only fought our election in, but we are fighting every day in Pakistan. And now we've got a new fight on our hands, and that is for our party to be absolutely banned in the country. The largest political party, the only national party in the country, in all provinces of Pakistan. And the most popular leader, probably the history of Pakistan has ever seen, is in a 7x8 cell, not given any prisoner rights. He's in a terrorism cell, which in this Pakistani media here, what you call Maut Ki Chakki. I spent 12 days in it as well. It's called Maut Ki Chakki, meaning it's the death cell. And he's not, and every time there's something important happening and he needs to meet his lawyers or his political PT, he's not allowed any visitations for days. So communication is very little. He's not given the right amount of laws that all the other prisoners are given in the same prison. Same goes for his wife. I will add that his wife was put under house arrest. And she said, if I'm illegally being put under house arrest, she wrote a petition to court herself and said, if you're going to arrest me illegally, you might as well throw me in prison. Don't put me in house arrest. Then she won that case. It was the only case that we won in that case. And she got thrown into prison. So that's exactly what the situation is. And so now they're both in prison along with Meher's father and many other top tier leadership and around 3,000 workers. So this is what I wanted to bring to you. I again reiterate that please talk about the UN report. International media is here. Talk about the lack of freedom of international media, even going around visitation rights to Adiyala where Imran Khan is. The Prime Minister himself tweets using VPN, which is astonishing. Um, and and we are unfortunately just facing a further and further crackdown. I'm not allowed on TV. Six other of the top tier leadership is not allowed on TV. Imran Khan's name is not allowed to be mentioned on TV. You have to say Qasim's father or the former Test cricketer, and they all kind of wink at each other. I mean, this is how news bulletins are being read. I mean, so we have to find a way to find sanity. Every single one of us, let it be us or other parties for that matter in Pakistan, want the betterment of Pakistan. We want to see Pakistan striving. We don't want to be going around the world telling Pakistan of these horrific stories. We want to be telling Pakistan about prosperity in Pakistan and the way forward and using the potential that we have in the country. This is an unfortunate situation, and the only way to put a reset button to this is either to give back our stolen mandate or to have free and fair elections in the country. Otherwise, it's very difficult to move forward calling Pakistan a democracy. And I know everyone here today is a champion for democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Sophie. Can I also add that you're actually in exile, aren't you? And that you had an arrest warrant that was overturned. Can I just tell everybody about that? Because I think it's really important.
I had a red warrant from Interpol put onto me. I was in Dubai, so I came to London on my lawyer's advice. I won that case via my lawyers. Interpol gave me a certificate saying that you're free to travel. We reject Pakistan's claim of you being a terrorist on you. So this is just very minor compared to what my colleagues in the country have gone through. Their family members are arrested, their siblings, their friends. You know, they're just everyone's just people haven't seen their kids in maybe 18 months. So mine is a very minor situation compared to what my colleagues are pushing.
But I think what's worrying from what I'm listening, what I'm hearing, I'm sure people hear, the idea that you would then try to use international avenues to then suppress. There's one thing doing it inside Pakistan, but actually using international law to try and carry on that conversation and spread it across globally. That's certainly what. And from a women's rights perspective, the idea for me, what was really, I mean, all of it is shocking, but the idea that a woman's menstrual cycles were discussed in court to establish a conviction against the former Pakistan Prime Minister, it's beyond appalling. It's such a step west where heading so backwards in time, and Imran Khan, political prisoner. You know, there is a message in that. You cannot crush that feeling of people. You cannot. It's an ideology. You can't crush it in this way, because the more it seems the more heavy-handed people are coming onto this issue, the more it seems to be gaining momentum. And I think that's the right thing. I'm going to hand over to Lord Hanan now to take over and close.
Thank you very much, Naz. Well, I'm going to allow a few questions from our parliamentary colleagues, but I just wanted to echo the point that Said Zulfi Bukhari was making there about democracy. A lot of people are connected to Pakistan either directly or through constituents of Pakistan heritage. I'm not. I don't have any constituents at all. I've been to Pakistan only once in my life. But I care very much about democracy and the rule of law, and so should all of you, whether you have connections to Pakistan or not. For most of our lives, we have seen a steady advance of freedom and law-governed democracy in the world. For the first 7 decades after the end of the Second World War, generally there was a trajectory towards democratization. It was fitful, it was patchy, but the direction of travel was clear. At some point in the last 10 or 15 years, that process stalled and began to go into reverse. There are all sorts of agencies around the world that measure this. There's the Economist Intelligence Unit, it's called Freedom House, the UN does one. All of them tell the same story. At some point between 2010, people began to go the other way. This year, 2024, more people are physically casting ballots than ever before in human history. Some 4 billion people around the world have the entitlement to vote, but a number of those elections are not free or fair as we would recognize it. What's happening in China? What's happening in Russia? There have been already elections in Pakistan and Bangladesh that fall well short of what we would consider a free and fair election. When I was a member of the European Parliament, I was sometimes an election monitor. And I sometimes monitored elections in banana republics. I don't say that slightingly. I mean, literally, republics that were dependent on bananas, specifically Ecuador and El Salvador. And one of the things that you learn as an election observer is that it's very difficult actually to steal votes. You can disqualify candidates on technicalities, you can deny them access to media. But the kind of straightforward vote theft that Mayor was describing is extremely unusual. And the reason it's unusual is because you can't do it with everyone knowing about it. And once everyone knows about it, you are then forced into repressive measures in order to make the theft stick. Which is why Pakistan this year, since the election, in the run-up to it and since, has been in something very close to what the rest of us would call martial law, a suspension of normal judicial process in order to sustain that outcome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is not something to which we can be indifferent as a friend and ally of that country. All of us, in those countries to which we are most connected by kinship, by custom, by habit and history, by law and language. Pakistan is an old friend and a close ally, and all of us want to see the situation where the majority of the population have buy-in to the result, where there are elections where candidates are not disqualified, and where confidence is thereby restored. I'm going to, when I summarize, I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 things that I think we can do in Parliament. But I'd first just like, I've seen a couple of my parliamentary colleagues indicating that they wish to speak. So if we can just take a couple of minutes to starting with my colleague in the House of Lords, Lord Hamilton.
Thank you so much, Lord Chairman. I'm very grateful to our contributors because they've told us about the breakdown, in effect, of democracy in Pakistan. And I think it's probably wrong to describe it as democracy when it gets as rough as that. But the problem is that that is the symptom and not the disease. It's like talking about the spots on the face of the patient who's got serious cancer. And the problem in Pakistan today are twofold. One, that the army controls almost everything in the country, and you can't govern without the agreement of the army. And secondly, that corruption is rampant across the whole country. The way you counteract corruption is by the rule of law. And from what you've said, the case for the rule of law in Pakistan is not completely lost. So what can we do to reinforce the rule of law in Pakistan?
So we're not going to have time to do a repeat Q&A. So any other of my parliamentarians or anyone else who would like to come in? Yes, please.
Apologies for coming a bit late. I'm still finding my way around here. Your testimony was bone-chilling from what I hear. I just wanted to ask you, Said, is what is a tangible that you would like from us, if you were to give us 3 points as parliamentarians and members of the Lords, that you would like for us to do to take away from this session?
Okay, I'm going to say something about that, and then I'll hand over. Is there anybody else who would like to? Is there anything else that we need to bring up? I have one more at the back. Yeah.
And actually, here is saying, I'm not sure whether these are true or not. There has been 180 Pakistani civilians under parliamentary votes. I would like to request Zulfikar Parikh to share light on it. And secondly, in terms of the political prisoners, under what condition they are put in the prisons? Because we are listening that Imran Khan is put in a sort of a death cell condition, which is 7 by 6 feet, whereas he's entitled to some other Catholic laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, one more, last one. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to raise a question here, being overseas Pakistani. Why is the influencer people, the powerful people, they bring a regime change into the third world always? So this is my biggest concern. When Mehrbanu talk about the cipher, that was the false allegation. That was the cipher that came in. And Imran Khan always talk about decipher why they bring the regime change, and the government was informed, they're performing well, the country was good. Even 2018, Pakistan was the best in the tourist destination. The people came from around the world. That was the first government ever be seen, which was the peaceful that earlier mentioned by Zulfi. So why they need to bring the regime change? Because you don't want to see a competitors, like they can grow, they can have a food. Why? We want always people from the third world countries this are well. That's my point.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, sorry, of course.
Well, can I thank you? I think it's very important that as parliamentarians, whether we're House participate, support democracy now. I know that we have corruption, and I know that sometimes elections are rigged, and it's not just limited to third world countries. I faced that in 2003 in Birmingham and launched an election petition, saw widespread for Richard Morey, Queen's Council, as was known back there, reported the Birmingham as a
republic.
Yeah. And so
not an actual one though, unlike Ecuador.
Quite, yeah. And so I've been at the very forefront of seeing how people can be stolen of their democratic right. And it's how we progress forward, because as someone who was born in Pakistan, I feel very passionate about Pakistan. And as anyone which has heritage of Pakistan, we want to see it thrive. It's in a region which has not just national but international implications. We want to see a nation such as Pakistan, a nuclear capable nation, to succeed. But we want to make sure that democratically elected politicians are in place rightfully. And so how do we take this forward, and what can we do? Because the question, I think, from the audience was, sometimes when you look at what the Western influence is on certain regimes, that is also a factor. And so how do we walk through this maze?
Thank you. Let me say something in response to that, and then I'll ask our guests what they think we should be doing. It was very chilling, wasn't it, listening to Mer's testimony of what happened, and to hear about what happened to Zulfi's team simply for advertising this meeting.
Yeah.
Let me read you the response that I got from an MP who supports the governing party in Pakistan. This is her response to the fact of this meeting going ahead. This is translated from Urdu by Google. The Jewish lobby has come out in support of its investment in Pakistan. Lord Daniel Hannan is a Jew and a member of the House of Lords. He is hosting an event at which PTI officials are coming, including Zulfi Bukhari and Banu Qureshi. Jewish lobby funding appears to be full-time. It's being used against Pakistan and will be a continuation of the Goldsmith-backed Jewish lobby to get Imran Khan out of jail. Right now, this is an MP, right? This is an MP for the ruling party. Now, I have one of those confusing surnames that could be Jewish or could be Arabic, or indeed could be Bengali. I have a tribes. In my case, happens to be Irish, but I'll tell you what, I would much rather be Jewish than be related to the kind of person who spouts that kind of bigotry. Now, that's simply, there's no risk to me in doing that. But we heard about what happens to people on the ground who have been promoting this meeting, and that alone should make us concerned about what's going on. So, to answer the people who said, what can MPs and peers do? I think there are a few immediate things that we could be doing. The first is there are various mechanisms to raise concerns in Parliament. There's a spectrum of things we can do, from putting down questions to getting I don't know what you call it at your end, but one of those debates in the Westminster Hall. There are lots and lots of ways in which we can do that. And if we all put in for the ballot, then we maximize our chances of getting it drawn. But I think we can also internationalize this issue beyond the UK. I was very struck by a recent letter from the US Congress, from US congressmen, struck by how cross-party it was, making the basic point that they were in favor of democracy and the rule of law in a way that was very difficult to argue with. I think there would be similar concerns in almost every friendly democracy. And so I would like us,
We did.
yes, I would like us to do not just a cross-party letter, to the UN or to the Pakistani government, but to see if we can do that with our colleagues from the US, Australia, and so on. As something that could easily be managed. One idea I've had, I'm open to suggestion on this, but I think it would neatly illustrate the nature of what is happening in Pakistan. Imran Khan is a graduate of Keble College, Oxford, and he was recently, I think, Chancellor of Bradford University, where by all accounts he was very popular, both with students and with faculty, took the job very seriously, didn't just do it as an honorific sinecure. The Chancellorship of Oxford is up now and is open for election. There's no rule that says you have to be an Oxford graduate, you have to be a graduate to vote. But that's a large electorate. I would love to see Imran Khan being a candidate to be Chancellor of Oxford, because nothing would so poignantly demonstrate the difference between what is happening in Pakistan and what should be happening in a country that is law governed than his being able to contest an election here while still in a jail cell in Pakistan. So those are some ideas of what we could do now to take this forward. I'm going to give the closing word, though, to Zulfi in response to.
Aren't we? We are calling for the peace here right now.
Yes, I mean, so for anyone who's coming new to this, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it, but the UN report is unequivocal on this. Imran Khan has been effectively kidnapped. That's what you call it when somebody is detained without due process and incarcerated without any legal process. And so the first stage towards an inclusive election. And I'm not a PTI member. I don't have any brief for any political party in Pakistan. Right? It's none of my business. But I do care about stability and prosperity in a friendly country. And the first step to getting that has to be an election that the majority of the population feel is legitimate and authoritative. And that can only happen if political prisoners are effectively released and if all the legal parties are allowed to contest it. Zulfi, I'm going to give you the last one.
Lord Hannan, I'll just be brief with the questions. I think answering your question is just that, when Winston Churchill was asked that will England survive, and he said, are the courts still there? And as long as the courts are there in Pakistan, Pakistan will survive. And we've seen a lot of hope in the last few weeks, if not months, in our judiciary. It's not perfect, but there's lots of judges that have stood up for the rule of law and the sanctity of the country and the people. And I think that is what's going to drive effectively this forward. Because as long as we don't want any special treatment, like I said, we want to go to court, we want to fight our case, we want our decision to be done on merit and on law. And as long as the rule of law can be applied, Pakistan will be okay, and so will democracy in Pakistan. Be fine. As far as it goes for the military's buy-in, Pakistan, we can't look at Pakistan's military and political relationship with just the lens of westernized countries, because we live in a different neighborhood and a different circumstances. Both go hand in hand. Both have to work together. A successful government will be one that will have fantastic ties with the military. The difference only is that, which probably will need to change in time to come, is that if the military does not agree with the government in charge, it doesn't mean that you oust them and throw them into jail and put 200 odd cases against them. That is the difference. That has to change. The relationship should always be good, because that's the dynamics we live in our country. On that, as far as this goes to military courts, I'll just say that we do have a lot of people being tried in military courts. It's absolutely illegal to try a citizen in military courts. There is a petition that has been filed in the Supreme Court. It's still pending, and we're waiting to hear on that. For moving forward, Lord Hannan gave a couple of great suggestions. Like I said, as long as there's awareness and there is people talking about it, commenting about it, and there is realization of what is going on in Pakistan, it can in some way or the other be brought into parliament through your certain formalities. We would like it to be brought into parliament, and we would like, and I'll use the word heavy-handed, resolve by the newly elected government to the imposed government in Pakistan, saying that we need this settled. Because this is not something that's only happening in Pakistan, it's across borders. You see lots of protests everywhere. It's not great for England, it's not great for anyone. So as long as the government realizes what is happening today, they should take the right stance, and that is speaking to the government in Pakistan at the moment and take severe action on it. I think that is extremely important. And lastly, as Lord Hannan said, the UN report, I'll go back to it. Please, there's recommendations on the final page of it. Those recommendations must be forced to be upheld. That is the bottom line. Those aren't my recommendations. They're not her recommendations. They're not Lord Hannan's recommendations. They are the UN recommendations. They have to be forced in the time period that they have set of 6 months to be upheld.
Zulfi, thank you very much. Thank you for being so clear, and thank you for keeping this fight up in such a tireless way. The party leadership is exiled or imprisoned, and yours has been a voice on behalf of a lot of people who at present have no voice. So thank you. I appreciate your patriotism and your energy. And thank you very much to Bari Saab. Thank you to Mayor for giving up their time, particularly coming all this way to address this meeting. The parliamentarians here, nice to see a couple of dozen of our colleagues, and also some of the parliamentarians not here will be hearing from Naz and me, because we will be asking you to sign a letter calling for Imran Khan's release and for political reforms. And so you'll be hearing from us before long. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Well, sure.
I'm not in jail because he's put there by the Pakistani courts. Wonderful. Seriously.
There's some media bites.
Yes.
Johnny, a colleague said.
Yeah.
The recording has stopped.